Wow, just right off the bat, I have to say it. What a way to say goodbye to a series. I still fully believe that whoever's being forced to make games with Assassin's Creed in the title should be let free and be allowed to make amazing games, because it's clear that there are extremely talented people working within the confines of a narrative they didn't write and didn't want to be a part of. Syndicate felt generic, formulaic, uninspired boredom that paid for the food on the table of families of developers who really needed their job. Jack the Ripper, on the other hand, felt like people came in on the weekend and scribbled the words "make something dope" on a whiteboard as a directive. I'm excited to just talk about it, so let's do it. This is your spoiler warning. If you're ready, let's just get into it.
My men and I have been hunting the Ripper around the clock for months now, and we've nothing to show for it. There's nothing I can tell the public.
What's the Ripper to do with me? My brother has had me summoned here from India. Can't this wait?
As far as I know, you may be the last assassin in London.
You think Jacob is dead?
I dare not believe it. But if he is, you may be the only person who can stop the Ripper now.
So, gameplay in Jack the Ripper. I'm just realizing that I complained that the last DLC only added 3 new things that hardly changed the experience, but funny enough, here we only add 4 things that do in fact make the entire DLC feel different. Crazy how that can work. The biggest change is the introduction of the fear system, which is honestly something that could have been added to a lot of games before, but defines Jack the Ripper. The system is pretty simple. Do scary things to increase people's fear levels from calm to anxious to afraid, and they will take off in fear, wanting no part of this nightmare. The other additions we get are really just different ways to increase fear. You will have a stake you can stick a guy to the ground with, which will incapacitate them, along with increasing the fear levels of those around them, along with me, because damn. You also have fear bombs that have about the radius of a smoke bomb, spewing out nightmares instead of concealment. If you're playing as Jack, the whistle will be replaced with a death screech that works a little too well. I didn't even like using it because it gave me chills. Oh, and you also now have access to brutal takedowns should you choose to use them instead of the traditionally slick assassinations. They're great at starting the party off when you don't care much for subtlety. Also, I mean, damn, I am the one pushing this button. I feel downright bad about it. It actually works out pretty well too, because different characters will have different reactions, like Brutes not being affected by fear, meaning that you'll want to target them first, adding another layer of depth to the combat. Now, the game will actually be played out with both Jack and Evie, with Jack bringing the violence and Evie doing her best Batman impression, bringing violence and intimidation without killing people. I don't know why though. I like the concept that we have non-lethal options at our disposal for the first time in the game. It just feels a bit random to decide coming up on a decade in that killing people is suddenly wrong. Regardless though, playing as Evie feels as smooth as it did in the base game while being guilt-free, which is cool, I suppose. Jack is different though. You can play him as an assassin, but it's way more fun to be the monster. The way the screen will flicker and display your objectives in the scribbles of a madman, as if to let you see the world through Jack's demented eyes, is phenomenal. I felt like a force of nature, and I often chose to move like one, walking right up to my targets rather than trying to take them by surprise, although I could have had I wanted to. I really just want to talk about the story here because it's so damn good, so let's get a quick run through of the side content. You work mostly out of Whitechapel, like the real Jack the Ripper did, and have the City of London Borough available to you as well to complete side content. There's a hell of a lot for Evie to fix, as Jack has spun the city into a nightmare. There are some side activities that are more or less a reskin of the default takeover stuff, but we also get plenty of unique content as well. We will storm brothels, which is like freeing kids from the factories, but you're forced to maintain at least some level of stealth or the girls will be in danger of being killed, an enjoyable change that ups the drama. Fight clubs sort of exist, except they're kind of one-offs that you just need to clear and kill the last guy. It's a little bit more fun than the base game just because of the raising stakes, and I do enjoy it. You can track down who wrote the famous Ripper letters such as Saucy Jack and From Hell, and get the fakes to recant their statements. You can save working girls with a high-speed chase leading to a rescue, or take part in the Walk of Shame, where you stop a man from hurting his girl, then parade him through the streets teaching him a lesson. There's your traditional hits and rounding up of criminals, along with the worst one being Carriage of Justice, where you literally just drive as slow as possible from one side of town to the other. That really sums it up though. You've got a few new tools and a big old city to play with them in, and it's fantastic. Whether you're playing as Evie working to lift fear from the city, or Jack wreaking surprisingly controlled havoc wherever he goes, it's an awesome experience. The gameplay is a fantastic shakeup from the regular game and fits the content provided in the narrative perfectly. Speaking of which...
For 20 years, after the Assassins defeated the Templars in London, the city enjoyed a certain peace. until the Autumn of Terror. In 1888, London is plunged into shadow and fear by a series of gruesome and unsolvable murders. The brothels of Whitechapel seem warm and safe by comparison to its streets, where prostitutes are being mutilated and left on grotesque display for the world to ogle. Jacob Frye hunts the elusive killer to bring an end to the terror of Jack the Ripper.
I mean, come on. They nailed it right from the word go. To see Jacob, who we never see anything but bravado from in the main game, outside of the moment he came closest to death, to be in an open state of fear, barely holding it together, is just so good. And I will say, wouldn't work as well without experiencing the main game. Then we step right into the shoes of Jack, and it's immediately clear why he's so afraid. Even without the screen effects, the walk alone is imposing, and the first act we see from him is one of his signature brutal takedowns. Then to fight him, one of the most straightforward combat-focused assassins in the series, just to tear through him and watch as he must dig into his bag of tricks just to escape in terror. When Jack catches up at his apartment, the fight is downright brutal. Seeing Jacob in this vulnerable state was a shocking change of pace, and I loved it. With Evie arriving a whole month later, you have to know things could have only gotten worse, not even accounting for how bad it must have been for Jacob to send for her in the first place. Mr. Abelline will remain a friend on the force, but it's very clear the case has shaken him to his core. We revisit the scene of the first murder, and naturally Ubisoft have twisted the narrative to fit into their world, which I'm fine with as usual. Changing it to the women attacked were in fact assassins. This does detract from the reality that these were senseless, horrible murders, but at least it makes for a good story here. Without much to go on here, Evie will investigate Jacob's house, and I have to say I was nervous the whole time. I swear I was hearing footsteps above and around me the whole time, and I kept expecting Jack to appear. Evie will find a clue left for her, and fuck, don't do that, Jack. Jesus Christ. The clue leads us to track down the working girl Nellie in what I'm fairly confident is the Kenway house. We save Nellie, but the woman holding her Lady O will escape during the distraction. We're informed she is acting as Jack's eyes and ears in London, so naturally it's time to go after her at her countryside estate in a rather fun mission. It was a little tricky to get in, and I did have to readjust to my captives trying to break out of my grip, but I was able to get up to her door maintaining stealth, and after the kill we get another lead in the form of newsman named Weaversbrook. Things are worse when you get back to town, finding that the majority of the police force has turned against you after it turns out everyone at that party you attended had been slaughtered. A combination of Jack tying up loose ends and putting the pressure on Evie. Abberline is doing all he can to keep them from arresting you outright, but you will no longer find sympathetic faces in blue. We find Weaversbrook with him safe and are then able to move on and rescue his son who is being held hostage. This allows at least for his newspaper to stop printing Jack's news and provides another lead. We head out to Jack's makeshift prisons to see if we can find Jacob among the inmates, and when we don't, we go after the warden instead before freeing the inmates and calling in the police. Again, Jack will come to clean up his tracks after you've left, but this time we're in the driver's seat and it's awesome. There's something about walking straight through the place that feels so right as Jack. He's mad to be sure, but also calculated and intelligent. You'll move through the complex destroying evidence and killing witnesses. It's downright brutal, but still logical. Evie returns to find Mary Jane Kelly's murder scene, the woman thought to be the last of the real Jack's 5 murders. Along with the corpse, we find a message only Evie can see, and this leads us to work through the other murder scenes, digging through clues left for Jacob and Evie alike. She had suspicions before that the real identity of the Ripper was Jacob's protege, and this set of clues confirms it as it appears he's doing this as revenge for Jacob not solving the murder of Jack's mother or preventing it. At least in this story, all the lives he takes are those of assassins, but it still doesn't excuse the brutality of these downright ghastly murders. We get hit with a fear bomb that allows Jack to pass along his message. We get confirmation this is revenge for his mother's death and that he blames Jacob and the assassins. We get our final target in the asylum Jack grew up in. First though, we will walk in Jack's shoes one final time as he yet again works to erase evidence of his existence, tearing through the asylum, killing anyone who knew him and destroying any evidence of his time there. I did note something interesting here in that Jack, regardless of what seems to be a never-ending murder streak, does not approve of targeting civilians. For all his misdeeds, it seems as though he truly has justified these actions in his mind and is at least living by his own twisted code. With the loose ends tied up and the inmates set free, creating a madhouse, we find the final stage ready for the last confrontation. Stalking through the asylum, taking out Jack's men before descending into the basement makes my heart race now just thinking about it. Never go into basements, it's a terrible idea. We spy Jacob behind a locked door and he appears to be dead, but there isn't time to get to him, so we press on into easily the only good boss fight in the entirety of the Assassin's Creed series. We find in front of us an enemy we can't harm, going toe to toe with him as he swats aside all our advances like we are a young child trying to slap your older brother. None of your tools will work either. He was trained as an assassin after all. So you have to reach not into your little bag of goodies, but your skills and scamper off in order to hit him from behind where he's vulnerable. After we catch him lacking a few times, he will open the doors, allowing the madhouse to descend upon us, leaving us with a pretty damn fun quick time sequence leading to us finishing off Jack and saying our goodbye to him. I really appreciate that he tries to do this whole, oh, you're the same as me thing, and Evie's just like, fuck off, no, I have not murdered people and cut them up into little pieces. What? No, stop. With that though, we rescue Jacob, and when Freddy Abeline comes calling, we tell him that we have to cover this up. The world may never know who Jack the Ripper was. Not sure if I agree with that, but hey, it's gotta fit in with history and the fact that no one ever found out who he was. That marks the end of our fantastic little story. Where Dead Kings failed to live up to Unity, Jack the Ripper, in my opinion, far surpasses Syndicate, making the setting, the Fry twins, the side characters, and our antagonist compelling where the base game failed on all points. From gameplay that felt phenomenal to settings that genuinely unnerved me to play through and a narrative I very much wanted to finish, this was a couple of the best hours I've spent in the whole series. And I'll be honest, I think I'm giving it a little more free space as it's a DLC, a space where I don't think any game has to stay perfectly true to its original narrative. This couldn't have made up a mainline title without me calling it a poor addition to the series, but with how it's presented, I think it's phenomenal. Absolutely worth your time, worth your money if you still had to pay for it. If you want to play an Assassin's Creed game, or you just want to play an awesome Jack the Ripper title, this is for you. Give it a shot.
Because it would destroy you. No, 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 no!
Jack, we can fix you.
Fix me? I am the solution.
We're going to take a little bit of a detour here as I discuss the real identity of Jack the Ripper. If you have no interest in that, you can hop off here. Origins next week as expected, and I'd like to thank you for being all the way here. Drop me a sub if you like the content. That being said, let's get into my little side interest for this piece. I have a friend named Dim Shady. Please ask me how he got the name, it's hilarious. But anyway, he texted me one night to tell me he had narrowed down the possible Rippers down to 2 after several hours of intense research, and would tell me when he figured out for sure who it was. He has elected not to recount his findings for you with his own voice and as such left them to me. This sounds like a joke, but he has me entirely convinced and I want people to know. I've brought in another voice and will be quoting him directly along with displaying the visual evidence that led him to his conclusion.
Ryan's Ripper Theory. Okay, so there were a lot of murders around that time, but there are 5 main ones that are deemed most likely to be committed by the same man, aka Jack the Ripper, aka Leather Apron. So, Charles Lechmere was the man who found the Jack the Ripper's first victim on his way to work. But this isn't the only murder which took place on his work route. In fact, 4 of the 5 fall on his 2 most ideal paths to work. Now, I know what you're thinking. What about the 5th murder? Well, it took place well off his path, but his mother lived here, indicated by the green dot, and the green line shows that the main road she lives on got cut off. So, I highlighted the most likely ways he would have taken to get to his mother's place. As you can see, the 5th murder falls perfectly on that path. Not only just the murders are credited to Jack the Ripper, but other murders also fall on the work home, mother's house paths. Also, when Charles found the first woman, another man walked up to him as he was standing on the body, and he stated that the woman was still warm, and he believed she may have even been still breathing. And Jack the Ripper is known to be insanely gruesome and disemboweling victims and taking organs, but this woman was just left to bleed to death? I think not. I believe the other woman walked up while Charles was in the process of killing her, and instead of running and drawing suspicion, he played it off as just finding her. Also, when questioned by police, he gave the name Charles Cross, which took the surname of his stepfather. Scientists didn't find out his real name until 2012. It is my firm belief that Charles Allen Lechmere is in fact Jack the Ripper.
Alright, you know what? He's got me convinced. What do you think of his theory? Never thought you were going to find this when you clicked on a video about Jack the Ripper and Assassin's Creed, did you? Anyways though guys, we should really wrap it up here. I want to hear your thoughts on this down in the comments on not only Jack the Ripper, but the last installment of traditional Assassin's Creed style games. For my money, at this point, the series had gotten incredibly stale and was due for some kind of overhaul. I just wish it wasn't the one that we got. I'll talk about it more in depth when we get to the final breakdown video, but for my money, they made the wrong decision going the way they did with Origins. However, if you're going to end the series so far away from the original Assassin experience, you might as well do it with something as fantastic as Jack the Ripper. To be honest, I'm not looking forward to starting Origins, but I'll get it done, and I'll get it done right, I promise. For now, though, this is Purple signing off. Have a wonderful night, and always remember to smile. Thanks, guys.
Miss Fry, what the hell happened here?
Nothing, Inspector. Nothing happened here. Trust me. Jack the Ripper's dead.